Hi, everyone. It's Mary, your host of your 90 Days and 900 Seconds podcast. And I'm here with my recap for season 5, episode 15, Cold and Calculated, which should have been Keep on Running. So here we go. Starting off with my favorite couple of the season, Gino and Jasmine. So Jasmine's moving into her new apartment. $4 bottles of wine and all. So I love the unicorn placemats. I just want to put that out there. The unicorn placemats were adorable. So she's moving in and she's like, Gino, I really appreciate your help with this apartment. The rent is $700. It's so expensive. I wouldn't even be able to afford it with my 3 jobs that I have. And I really appreciate your help because Jasmine had to move out of her old apartment. She wasn't getting along with her roommate. So she moved into this beautiful, mind you, the apartment was fucking gorgeous. Moved into this beautiful apartment and Gino's going to help her pay the rent. Meanwhile, Gino was looking uncomfortable because he's thinking, well, I'm not working right now and I have my own bills to pay back in the States. And even though the rent is $700, we have electricity, cable, Wi-Fi, and I just love how Jasmine, like, she kept smiling, but her eyes started to shift, and you just saw like her thoughts going in her eyes. She's like looking at him like, and I'm your fiance. You're supposed to help me. And she even says that in her confessional that he's being a cheap, salty guy who is cautious about spending his money on me. Like, oh, what the hell? I kind of get where she's coming from, but I get where Gino's coming from. He does have his own bills to pay, and he doesn't want to chip into his nest egg, which is apparently $650,000. Investments really do go far. I should start looking into investing a little more. I think if Gino can make $650,000 on investments, maybe I can. Hey, you never know. So, he's nervous about having to dip into his retirement fund to fund Jasmine's lifestyle while she's in Panama still, and because he knows the K1 process could take long. So next scene, he's in a Panamanian cafe eating a donut and drinking, I assume was a can of soda because they blurted out. And he says he knows that Jasmine would like him to eat healthier, but he's just going to, treat himself. Jasmine's back at the apartment taking a nap. So he calls Uncle Marco. And Uncle Marco's like, hey, what's going on? And Gino tells him about the engagement. He's like, congratulations. So did you talk to her about the prenup yet? And Gino's like, Uncle Marco, I really haven't brought that up to her yet. Considering everything that's gone on, I don't want it to be another fight. And Uncle Marco's like, listen, Gino, nothing against Jasmine personally, but you need to protect yourself. And Gino brings up the point that when he was divorcing his ex-wife from 8 years ago, the one that he brought over on a K1 visa, he didn't have a prenup with her and he had to give her a substantial amount of his savings. So I totally understand where Uncle Marco was coming from because apparently back then, Gino was not worth what he is now. And Uncle Marco's point of view is, I have nothing against Jasmine as a person, but this whole thing is happening very quickly. This is all very new, and you need to protect yourself. And Gino's like, Uncle Marco, you're right. So now we're at their last night together in Panama. They go out to this beautiful restaurant. They're having dinner, and Gino is prepared to have the prenup conversation. He's, nervous that Jasmine is going to flip out over it, but he's like, I need to have this conversation with her. This is my last night in Panama, and I want to do this in person. But Jasmine, my girl, has other ideas. So she's like, Gino, all of the problems that we've had are because of your exes. And now that we can talk, I want to point something out that I recently discovered that pissed me off. And Gino, immediately, he looks nervous. So she points out that she recently discovered on social media that Gino's ex-wife is still using his last name. And I'm going to say this. I totally get where she's coming from because she is now Gino's fiance and she's going to have his last name. This woman, the first wife, does not have any children with Gino. So I really don't get why she's holding on to his last name. Why can't she just go back to her maiden name? I mean, it is a pain in the ass to change your name and to change your name on documents, but hey, that's adulting the last time I checked. So I don't understand why she can't just revert back to her maiden name. She doesn't have children with him. I would understand if she had children and she wanted to have the same last name as her kids. That is understandable, but there are no children involved in his first marriage. So I don't get it. And I get where Jasmine is coming from. And Jasmine just basically told Gino that you need to contact your ex-wife and tell her to change her name and or there's going to be hell to pay. So Gino's all uncomfortable as usual. Let's see how that turns out. Obviously, he didn't bring up a prenup. So moving on to Mike and Jimena. I'm glad the season is over next week. That's all I have to say. So I don't have to watch these two anymore. So we start off back at the pool hall where Mike is doing his best Paul running in the Amazon impression. He runs around the block. Then he comes back. Jimena is sitting there. She couldn't give a rat's ass that he took off. I mean, she couldn't care if like the cartel held him up, if her hitman ex-boyfriend came out of like a side street and like snatched him off the street. She couldn't give a rat's ass what is happening to Mike right now. Mike is doing his Paul impersonation running around the block, and she tells the producer that she ended it because she doesn't feel good with him. So he comes back and he basically convinces her to let him spend the night there with her in a separate room. So fast forward to the next morning, and Jimena's like, here's your engagement ring, here's the wedding rings. I don't need this anymore, basically. And Mike is like, why don't you hold on to these for safekeeping until we resolve our differences? And she's basically like, listen, there is no differences to resolve. The relationship is over. And he cannot get it through his thick head. I don't know how many times this woman has to tell you that you are disgusting. She doesn't want to have anything to do with you. The relationship is over. Give it up, pack your shit, and go the fuck home. And he is just going on. And this is where his true colors comes out. I swear, in this moment, I wanted to reach through the TV and snatch his minion-looking ass. And yes, I said that. When he told Jimena, you had the opportunity for a better life with me, to move back to the U.S., to learn to speak English, to get a better job, he sounded so condescending. And she just turned around and said, you know something? I don't want to move to New York. I'd rather stay in Colombia. And he's like, so, what kind of job are you going to get? You're going to go back to work on that website? And she's like, yeah, why not? What's wrong with that? That's where you met me, isn't it? So apparently, which I knew this for a little while, people, that Mikey met Jimena on a webcam site, not a dating app, a webcam site, guys. So just let that marinate for a moment. So Jimena was a webcam girl that Mike met on a site and decided that he wanted her all for himself, and I guess started paying her expenses so she could quit her job. So Jimena's like, you know something? I'll go back as a webcam girl. I really don't care. I don't need you. I don't need your money, and you could just go home. So he is acting like a fucking child. He is throwing a temper tantrum. And so he's just like, I'm not leaving. And they get into this whole argument in front of her sister. And Jimena's like, this whole situation is stupid. And he turns around and tells her, no, you're stupid. And Jimena's like, that's it. I'm done with this. Get the fuck out. And she's runs to her mother. You know, he's so rude. And her son is crying. Jimena's crying. Hot Mess Express. Mike, just get on the fucking plane and go home. So moving on to another one that should just get on the fucking plane and go home. Actually, that should be the name of this episode. Get on the fucking plane and go home. Ben and Mahogany. Ben is back in San Bartolo, okay? He hasn't heard from Mahogany. He's going home in 2 days, so he decides to send her a text. Let's meet up at the place where we first, spent our full day together. I'm glad that the season is ending next week, so I just don't have to watch this bullshit anymore. So she meets up with him, and basically she expresses to him that he made her feel unwanted, and like, he didn't care when she showed up to the restaurant instead of her parents. And Ben apologizes, and he's like, do you forgive me? He gave her a present, a teddy bear that says amor. The whole thing was just so creepy to me. And I know, there has been a lot of debate about who's a predator in the 90 Day Fiancé franchise and who isn't. And definitely in my book, Ben is a predator. This girl is young. She is 22. First of all, this is a fake, in my opinion, a fake storyline to begin with. But if this Mahogany girl is real, she is 22 years old. Ben is 50, whatever the fuck he is. And he is acting like a teenager in love. He has reverted in his mentality back to that of a teenager. That is predatory behavior. I said what I said. So they take a walk. Mahogany's like, oh, Benjamin, I'm so confused. And he kisses her. And then she's like, hey, for his age, he's not a bad kisser. That made me vomit in my mouth a little. So then, he feels like that this is the first step in the progress in their relationship until the next morning when he is going to the airport. So it's ciao to the gringo in Peru. So he decides that he wants to have a conversation with her about her inconsistencies, the inconsistency in her age, her pictures, looking different. And when he confronts her mainly about the age inconsistency, she's just like, I don't know. I told you I was 23 at the time. I don't remember. She totally plays stupid, which makes me believe even more that Mahogany is an actress. And she is really good at twisting the narrative. She twisted that and threw it back at Ben like a softball player throwing a curveball. I mean, he was trying to, confront her, and she turned that back around and stormed off before he knew what the fuck was happening. Good for you, Mahogany. You're good. So, moving on, Memphis and Hamza. If Memphis wasn't such a fucking buzzkill, this would have been a really heartwarming scene. But because Memphis is such a buzzkill and it's over and over, and don't get me wrong, I get where she's coming from. She's nervous and she's not really sure. But it's like every 5 seconds, girl, come on, stop being such a buzzkill. So she's getting ready for her wedding. Hayat feeds her lamb liver, which the look on her face was hysterical. So she's getting these beautiful henna tattoos on her legs, and Hamza's watching the whole process. And then his dad and his uncle arrives. And I just wanted to say, when Hayat came out to greet her ex-husband, that just showed the classy queen that she is. I love that. She greeted him with a smile on her face. And so then they go, they leave the apartment and they go in the car, and Hamza's friends are following on their bikes, and they get to the place where they're getting married. And basically, the ceremony consists of a notary, and the bride and the groom sign a marriage contract. Some prayers are said, and boom, the ceremony's over. And then there's a party for an hour of dancing. So Memphis is standing there looking totally clueless as everybody's reciting these prayers around her, which happens, girl, when you get married in a foreign country where you don't know the language. And it was a beautiful ceremony. They had a nice time afterwards. Everybody was dancing. Memphis felt totally included, and it was really heartwarming until dun 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 dun. Dun. Next scene, they're honeymooning in Tunis. And she's not feeling too good. They're in the hotel room and she's like, she's been having these stomach issues. Since she's got into Tunisia, people, if you remember from the first or second episode, she's had these stomach issues. So she's like, my stomach's not feeling too well. I've been really tired. So I have something to tell Hamza. So Hamza comes back to the room and she tells him she's pregnant. And Hamza is like, well, what the fuck? I'm like, what the fuck? And I think 95% of the 90-Day Fiancé universe was like, what the fuck? Because I don't know how Memphis expected to pull off that this was Hamza's child. Because wasn't she only in Tunisia for about 2 weeks? And she is currently 3 weeks pregnant. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember she was supposed to be in Tunisia for 2 weeks. How can't she be 3 weeks pregnant? And even though I'm a woman, I've been pregnant, and I don't recall a pregnancy test being able to detect pregnancy till at least the 4th week of pregnancy. I could be wrong. I haven't been pregnant for many years, but I don't know. Something just is weird to me. And I will be posting a 90-day trash talk tomorrow where Memphis had some baby news or maybe non-baby news on Instagram over the past week. So check that out tomorrow. So I don't know. So then they go back to the house and they tell Hayat and Rawa that she's pregnant. Hayat is so happy, which was not sitting well with me, because I was sitting there thinking that it couldn't possibly be Hamza's. And Hayat was like, I wasn't happy that they had sex before marriage, but now I forgive it all. And I don't know. All I can say is 3 weeks pregnant when you were in Tunisia for only 2. I don't know, people. So moving on to my last I don't know people couple, Kim and Usman. So Kimberly is leaving today. And Kimberly is so sad. And Usman couldn't give a flying fuck. He actually looked happy that she was leaving. Okay. She is sobbing in the car. And he's like, oh, stop it, Kimberly. And then he sings the next #1 jam, people. You got my yammy yammy. You say you loves the Kimberly. I mean, this guy, anything to fucking promote his music. So she's sobbing. He's like practically grinning from fucking ear to ear. And so she's like, well, he does make me happy when we're not fighting. I'm like, give me a fucking break. Get to the airport, and he's insisting that there is no public kiss goodbye in the airport. And she's like, she can't believe it. She gets a high five instead, but she can't believe it because she's like, I thought that we were in a better position in our relationship, that at least he would kiss me in the airport. But, Kimberly, didn't get your kiss because Usman gave you a high five instead. And did anybody notice that she must have said I love you to him 100 times? And he didn't say it back once. So, Kimberly, I don't think the dynamic is going to be the same when you get back to the States. It's just me, girl. So next week is the finale and the tell-all, apparently. So Jasmine is crying that she ruined their last dinner together. Usman, dun, 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 calls Zara. We all knew Zara was going to make an appearance this season because they didn't blur out her pictures. And this is where she makes her appearance in the finale. Memphis leaves, and Ben is trying to talk to Mahogany, but Mahogany doesn't want to fucking hear it. And Jimena is another one that doesn't want to fucking hear anything. And she's basically like, bye, Mike. So thank you all for tuning into my recap. Please check out our Kenny and Armando video that was just uploaded today. So please check that out. And tune in tomorrow for 90 Day Trash Talk and for our Love After Lockup recap. And that's basically it. Thank you for tuning in, and have a good night, day, week, whenever you're listening to me. Bye.